Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Chris Auger from the BAFE Fire Safety Register. I'm Director of Schemes, and I'm going to talk to you today about the significance of competence culture within the fire safety industry. So, historically, the fire sector were cautious about an external body telling them how to improve their businesses. But like many in the built environment, the sector is dominated by small companies or individuals, and it's not uncommon for sole traders to operate in all areas of fire protection. The sector is very price sensitive, resistant to change, and see third-party certification and competence scheme registration as a grudge purchase. But despite this, they saw third-party certification as their unique selling point to be included in tenders, which were increasingly specifying third-party certificated schemes. And all several years before Grenfell ever happened. Other terrible fires such as Lakenhall House and Rose Park Care Home all raised awareness of third-party certification and increased registrations for the reason of being able to demonstrate their competence. The appointments, so competence is now an even more key focus following the Grenfell Tower fire. The appointment of the shadow building safety regulator and the interim competence committee. Fire safety in purpose-built blocks of flats is being considered, the Fire Safety Act 2021, and of course the Building Safety Bill, recent changes to PAS 79, and the introduction of the BSI Flex documents and the development of the PAS documents for principal designer, principal contractor, and the building safety manager. And of course, the competence working groups are moving into their next phase of implementation. So here's a quote from UK government, and then the full quote is: third-party certification schemes for fire protection products and related services are an effective means of providing the fullest possible assurances, offering a level of quality, reliability and safety that non-certificated products may lack. Third-party quality assurance can offer comfort both as a means of satisfying you that goods and services you have purchased are fit for purpose, and as a means of demonstrating that you've complied with the law. Apologies there, it's a little bit wordy. So, excuse me. So there are barriers and problems to deliver effectively, and the fire sector is or has been no different to any other sector in regards to problems with service providers. Poor training is commonplace, and outdated practices has led to poor quality of service and potential life safety issues. The fire and rescue services are doing surveys and assessments outside of their competence levels. I beg your pardon, as fire risk assessors are doing surveys and assessments outside of their competence levels, chasing the dollar, if you will. The introduction of the EWS1 forms and the withdrawal of PAS 79.2 all having an impact on fire risk assessments. Technicians using and selecting inappropriate devices, such as manual core points without covers or sighted next door to door release buttons, smoke and heat detectors, and general all-rounder extinguishers not conforming to British standards. Standards being used are occasionally out of date, and active fire protection services are often one of the last systems to be installed in a building prior to occupation, and often companies arrive on site to find a duct or a water pipe across where the cable would normally be run, or a sensor positioned leading to the impromptu modifications to the system. Poor end user practice accounts for a huge number of unwanted fire and false alarms. And in 2017-18, the Fire and Rescue Service attended 227,000 false alarms, 41% of all calls. So as you can see, it's a pretty huge issue. And it's estimated to have cost the LFB alone more than £37 million per annum. So we're looking now at considerations for specifiers. And now there are specific standards and schemes for most fire protection services. So it's important to have an awareness of, if not a detailed knowledge of these standards. Involve designers at an early stage so they are aware of the services, and definitely once all of the services and utilities are being fitted, are being fitted. And one of the key problems with modern architecture and building designs is the use of glass, large open spacings, and wanting everything hidden away. This can cause problems when running cables and positioning detectors and sounders, core points, sprinkler heads, and signage, and the placement of portable fire extinguishers. Specifying competent organisations is one thing, but verifying they can do the work contracted for is something else. This picks up on the point from the previous slide on operating outside of his scope of competence. Example of registrations to one scheme, but claiming registration for others. If using third-party certification, always ask for the completion or module certificates. We do hear of instances where certificates are not issued for all sorts of reasons, but this will be a requirement for third-party certificated schemes. This is what the fire order says. So without going through it in too much detail, but I'll just leave you for a moment just to read through that particular slide. As we all know, the fire safety order is being updated as we speak. So that's, I don't think the competence requirement has actually changed, but it's probably been enhanced significantly since this was actually written. So what else does competency look like? So we all think we're competent drivers. You know, we take a test and we're given a driver's license, and there we're all ready and set to go until we next have to update or renew our driver's license. But we all make mistakes, and when we're not being watched, either knowingly or accidentally, we often drift over the speed limit, where the speed limit is 50, and how many of us have done this through roadworks? However, when we're being monitored, when we're being checked, our behaviour tends to change. And this is what third-party certification does. It makes us focus on what we actually have to do and actually deliver what we're supposed to deliver. So third-party certification and competence. So it's a way of demonstrating due diligence and best practice, and arguably what good looks like. It's a channel for improvements. And third-party certification and accreditation can be seen as a business improvement tool. But who checks the checker? Well, that'll be UCAS. So all of the accreditation body, all of the certification bodies, certainly that we use, have to be accredited, which means that UCAS will be checking what they do. So that's the checking of the checker, and even there is an even greater level of checking, because UCAS themselves are peer reviewed by the other European accreditation bodies on a 3 or 4 yearly basis. So just to give you a brief outline of what the process of getting third-party certification is, because people think it's quite a complicated process, but actually it's relatively straightforward. But you just have to be quite diligent in your work, and you have to have systems in place so that you can actually comply with the certification audit. So you have first-party certification, or first-party referral, I should say. So this is like a self-certification. So, I'm Chris Auger, I can do fire risk assessments, and I'm very good at what I do. So everybody gets a big thumbs up. So there are second-party and third-party certifications within this whole process. Now, the first party, being self-certification, doesn't really give you a great deal of confidence, or the end user a great deal of confidence, because you're just looking at your own work. So if we jump forward 2 steps, now there is a step in between this of second party, but if we go to the extreme example, now I'm not going to go through this particular slide in any great detail, but what it's really trying to sort of show you is the difference between third-party certification and all the various steps that you have to go through along the way to, there's your first party. There's very little checking, external checking of your quality of the work and your competence. So the 2 circles, the dotted circles in the center of the screen there, they represent the ongoing monitoring of schemes to sort of determine competence, and the schemes that we provide are all competence schemes, and they check on the competence of both the organisation and increasingly now the competence of the individuals who are operating within those organisations. So what's the UCAS accredited third-party certification? So by specifying or selecting a third-party certificated company, you're actually exercising due diligence. And as a customer, you're doing everything you possibly can to mitigate any potential risks going forward. Now, you're never going to stop those risks, but what you're trying to do is sort of reduce, minimize, or even eliminate those risks before they even happen. Because what, of course, we don't want is anybody standing up in front of the guys with the curly wigs and having to answer some very awkward questions on, what did you do to determine the competence of your service provider. So there's there's also here there's a potential for insurers, and it's a big issue at the moment with PI cover, of course, professional indemnity, but there's a potential here for insurers to look more sympathetically when claims are being settled, or even when the underwriting process is going on. And there's a big body of work which I'm sure you're all aware of, which is going on between DLUC and the insurance sector. So this was a very, very rapid run through of what third-party certification is and the importance of determining competence. But these are the sort of things that can actually go wrong when third-party certificated companies are not being used, or indeed, which is probably more a case on these particular slides, is this is more about fire protection when it's not been installed. So these are all photographs of events that have happened within the last couple of years. Since Grenfell, there are the most serious one that I can see there is the top left, where you've got the flats above the restaurant, or the takeaway restaurant, because that's a serious issue. As you can see, there is an open window just where the smoke is billowing out of the front of the restaurant there, and there's a serious risk not only to anybody who was down below, but also the people above in the flat. And of course, the Morrisons, which is the big Morrisons, which went up in flames in the kitchen. That was in the kitchen. That was down in Maidstone in Kent, if I remember rightly. And then, of course, there's a Burger King. And these are just 3 photos of many in a library that we have, which can show what can happen when either fire protection is not installed, or it's not installed, or if an installed system is done by a less than competent individual or organisation. To give you an idea of the number of schemes that are currently out there. Now, these are actually our schemes that we're out there. So we go everything from like fire risk assessments down to portable fire extinguishers, and we have schemes for all of these. And the infographic on the right-hand side of the slide there, that's just showing the growth in the actual schemes that we've had over the past 5 years. And as you can see, it's quite a steep growth curve. We grow somewhere in the region of about 10% a year, at least 10% a year on schemes. That's just across all of the schemes, not just one particular scheme. And that picture, I think, is replicated across many within the sector who actually offer schemes. But all I can say from our perspective is that we are the largest scheme provider of fire protection schemes in the UK at the moment. There are a few other providers. I should just point that out. We're not the only scheme provider in the country. So the last slide here before it goes into any questions. So what I'm really saying here is about third-party certification. It's both a commitment to both competence and quality, and I hope that if nothing else, I hope that you take away with you it's that message about competence and the demonstration of competence, most importantly, and as sort of procurers and specifiers within a fire sector and fire safety products and services. I hope that this is what you're going to be considering going forward. Thank you for your time.